There was a little girl in Thailand who used to stand in front of a mirror taller than she was, barefoot on cool tile, and pretend the room was a stage on fire. No audience, no cheers, just a low speaker crackling with music, and a heartbeat that sped up for one reason: fear. Not fear of dancing, but fear that her dream sounded too ridiculous to say out loud. Her name was Lalisa, and even before the world knew the name Lisa, she lived like someone who had to prove something, not to strangers, but to herself. Because life doesn't hand you a path just because you dare to want one. Every time Lalisa practiced, it felt like a private bet. If I'm better than yesterday, will tomorrow finally change? She grew up inside repetition, moves drilled until her muscles burned, corrections made until her joints ached, smiles practiced until they looked effortless. And somewhere in that routine, a fragile belief formed: maybe talent could pull her out of anonymity. Then the moment that splits a life in two appeared, a ruthless audition door where hundreds, sometimes thousands, line up for a single chance. For a Thai girl, it wasn't just a test. It was a fight for identity. Do I belong in a world that was never built for me? One mistake and she'd disappear back into the crowd. One slip and the dream would turn into a story she'd be too embarrassed to tell. This cold open isn't here to explain how Lisa became famous. It's here to ask the sharper question. If a child was brave enough to walk that far, what did she have to sacrifice from the very first step? Buriram isn't the kind of place the world watches for pop stars. It's the kind of place that teaches you what it feels like to be small. Small town, small circle, small chances. Lalisa was an only child, raised by her Thai mother and a Swiss stepfather who worked as a chef. Steady hands, disciplined routine, the kind of adult presence that doesn't speak in slogans but in standards. Home wasn't glamorous, but it had something more important: the idea that effort is real and results are earned. Somewhere between school days and family routines, Lalisa began building a private universe where she didn't need permission to be extraordinary. And then, dance. Not as a hobby. Not as something cute for kids. Dance as an obsession that slowly rearranged her identity. She started taking dance classes young, and once she felt the rhythm settle into her bones, she couldn't unfeel it. Her body learned what her mouth wouldn't dare say: I want more. She practiced the way kids practice when they're not trying to impress anyone, meaning she practiced like her life depended on it. In Thailand, she entered competitions and kept showing up again and again until the stage stopped being scary and started feeling like home. The more she performed, the clearer the pattern became. She didn't just like attention, she liked control. Control over timing, over energy, over the room's emotion. That's a dangerous talent for a child because once you taste it, normal life starts to feel like a cage. But talent is a soft word. The harder truth is that she was learning ambition early, quietly, almost politely, while everyone else still thought dreams were optional. She joined a dance crew, surrounded by kids who trained like athletes, kids who counted beats the way others counted grades. They weren't pretending. They weren't playing celebrity. They were sharpening something. And in that crew, Lalisa wasn't just keeping up, she was getting noticed. She moved like she had a secret engine inside her, quick, precise, fearless. The kind of performer who makes people look twice even when they don't want to. It's also where the first real pressure arrives, because once people expect you to be the best, you stop dancing for fun. You start dancing for survival. Then comes the detail that sounds like a movie twist but wasn't written for cinema at all: her name. Born with one name, she later changed it to Lalisa, reportedly after advice from a fortune teller, an attempt to pull luck closer, to rewrite fate with a word. Some people laugh at that. But think about what it reveals. A child already understanding that talent alone might not be enough. That even belief needs a symbol, a name that feels like armor, a name that says, I'm not here to be average. And finally, the door, the audition, the kind of moment that doesn't feel dramatic while it's happening, because it's too loud, too crowded, too real. Thousands of hopefuls. The air heavy with perfume, sweat, nerves, and the sharp metallic taste of possibility. This wasn't just a chance. This was a test of whether a Thai girl could step into a Korean industry and not get erased by the system before she even entered it. She performed, she delivered. And when the results came back, the story turned brutal in the simplest way possible. Among roughly 4,000 applicants, she was reportedly the only one selected. Not one of many. The only one. That's not a win. That's a sentence. Because from that moment on, Lalisa couldn't go back to being invisible, even if she failed. This is the real, before-fame cliff edge. She hadn't become Lisa yet. She didn't have the stage, the styling, the global spotlight. She only had a decision that would cut her childhood in half, stay where she was safe, or leave everything she knew and bet her entire life on a future that didn't promise her anything. And the scariest part? She was still young enough that bravery and naivety looked exactly the same. The day Lalisa left Thailand, it didn't feel like a victory scene. It felt like a quiet theft, like her childhood was taken from her suitcase one folded shirt at a time. New country, new language, new rules. And the first shock wasn't the training, it was the loneliness. Because when you're young and far from home, confidence doesn't disappear loudly. It fades in small moments, when you can't explain what you need, when you laugh half a second late because you didn't catch the joke, when you call home and pretend everything is fine while your throat tightens. Inside the trainee system, nothing is talent until it survives repetition. Days blur into practice rooms with mirrored walls and fluorescent lights that make time look harsh. You dance until the floor stops feeling like a floor and starts feeling like an opponent. You learn choreography like memorizing a language that punishes mistakes. And because she was foreign, because she was Thai in a Korean machine, every flaw felt bigger. If she was perfect, it was expected. If she slipped once, it was proof she didn't belong. That's the pressure nobody tweets about, the pressure of carrying an entire identity on your back, as if one person's performance can represent a whole country's worth. Then comes the part that breaks people: comparison. In a room full of trainees, you're never just improving, you're competing in silence. Someone is always a little taller, a little louder, a little more fluent, a little more marketable. And the cruel truth is, you can do everything right and still be cut. Lalisa had to learn a new kind of survival, not just being good, but being undeniable. So she sharpened what made her different. Her movement became cleaner, faster, more precise. Her expressions became controlled, cute when needed, fierce when demanded, cold when the camera required power. That's not naturally born charisma. That's a teenager building armor in real time. But the hardest battles weren't in the dance lines. They were in the in-between hours. The nights when the practice room is empty and the mirrors show you a face you barely recognize. The mornings when your body aches and you still have to walk in like you're grateful. The moments when doubt isn't dramatic, it's practical. What if I'm wasting my youth? What if this ends with nothing? Because she wasn't just training for a debut, she was training against time. Every year that passed made the gamble heavier. Every birthday away from home made the distance feel more permanent. And somewhere in that grind, another fear grows: being seen but not understood. A foreign trainee can become a story, a novelty, a label. And labels are dangerous because they can turn you into an object, something people talk about instead of someone they know. Lalisa had to find a way to stay human while becoming a product. She learned the rules of the room: when to speak, when to smile, when to be invisible so she wouldn't be too much. And yet, she couldn't afford to vanish. So she did the only thing that makes sense in a system that eats the weak. She kept showing up sharper than yesterday. Part 3 ends before the spotlight, but the seed of Lisa is already there. A girl who traded comfort for possibility, who learned to breathe under pressure, who trained like failure was not an ending, but a door that would slam forever if she didn't outrun it. The first time the world truly noticed Lisa, it wasn't gentle. It was instant, like stepping out of a dark hallway into blinding light. No time for your eyes to adjust, no time to breathe. One day, you're a trainee's story whispered inside a company building. The next, your face is everywhere. Screens, thumbnails, trending lists, reaction videos, edits that turn your smallest expression into a global language. Debut didn't just introduce her, It branded her. Lisa moved differently, sharp, fast, precise, like every beat was a decision. Cameras loved her because she didn't beg for attention. She took it, and once that switch flipped, it never flipped back. Each comeback raised the stakes. Each performance became less about, is she good, and more about, how far can she go? The answer kept escalating. Bigger stages, louder crowds, tighter choreography, higher expectations. Then the explosion went global. The same clips repeated across continents. Her dance breaks, her stare, her timing that felt almost unfair. Fame didn't grow slowly. It multiplied. And with that multiplication came something darker. People stopped seeing a person and started seeing a symbol. Not Lisa, the girl who trained for years, but Lisa, the standard. Lisa, the threat. Lisa, the obsession. When you become a symbol, the world begins to use you. Fans to celebrate their identity, critics to vent their resentment, strangers to project their fantasies. And here's the trap inside a breakthrough. The bigger you get, the smaller your margin for error becomes. One off night becomes a headline. One tired expression becomes a rumor. One camera angle becomes a weapon. She had finally reached the dream, but the dream came with an invisible contract: perform perfection, or be punished for being human. In the beginning, the spotlight feels like victory. Later, you realize it's also a searchlight. It doesn't just illuminate your talent, it hunts for flaws. And as Lisa's name climbed, so did the noise, whispers that would soon become storms. Because the world didn't only fall in love with her, the world also started watching for her to fall. Fame didn't arrive like a crown, it arrived like a courtroom where the verdict changes every hour. For Lisa, the global icon label came with a darker twin: global target. The bigger she became, the more people treated her existence like a debate. Not just her performances, but her body, her accent, her expressions, her silence. And the cruelest part, silence is never neutral online. Silence becomes guilty. Silence becomes arrogant. Silence becomes whatever the crowd needs it to be. Then the cycles began, those waves of controversy that don't even need full proof to feel real. A clip gets cut too short, a screenshot spreads too fast, a styling choice becomes a battlefield. People argue over what she meant, what she represents, what she should apologize for, what she doesn't deserve. Even when the issue starts small, it expands because Lisa isn't just a person in the public eye. She's a symbol people use to fight their own wars: fandom pride, anti-fandom resentment, cultural sensitivity debates, beauty standards, nationality bias. And once her name is attached, the internet doesn't discuss. It performs rage. Rumors about her private life add gasoline. A blurry photo, a coincidental schedule, a source with no face. Suddenly timelines are built like crime boards, and strangers speak with absolute certainty about a life they've never lived. If she's seen smiling, it becomes proof. If she looks tired, it becomes damage control. Either way, the story writes itself without her permission. That's the price of being watched. You stop owning your narrative. And underneath the drama is pressure that doesn't trend, but kills slowly, perfection as a requirement. Every stage becomes an exam. Every appearance becomes a scan for flaws. She has to be effortlessly charismatic, endlessly grateful, always polished, never too much, never not enough. The moment she steps outside that impossible line, the punishment is instant. Think pieces, edits, hate trains, comment sections that feel like a public execution. This is where people misunderstand her calm. They call it coldness, but sometimes calm is just survival. Sometimes a smile is a shield, not a mood. Lisa learned that the world will demand a version of her that never breaks, while simultaneously waiting to capture the second she does. Because in the age of viral drama, a star isn't only celebrated for shining, a star is also hunted for burning out. Some people will only remember the spotlight, how Lisa looks when the music hits and the world obeys. But the real story is what came before the lights and what survives after the noise. A Thai girl once danced in a quiet room, betting her entire future on rhythm and grit. Now she stands as a global icon, admired, imitated, debated, attacked, yet still moving forward with the same discipline that built her from nothing. Fame didn't make her fearless. It simply proved she could carry fear and still perform.